by introducing you to our technical assistant, Eldar Prabhu. You want to switch on your camera? Yes. Okay. So he will give you the links to the materials in the beginning of each session. And also for those who are joining us the first time, usually the way I like to work is that there's usually 2 topics in each session of this course. And I present first something, and then we take a quick little break for questions, but only 1 or 2 questions or something. And then I present the second topic. And then I usually, at the end, I like to leave as much time as required to answer all kinds of questions. And yes, if you like, you can switch off on your cameras, your video, so I can see you. This is always more inspiring for me to make it a bit more personal, so I can connect with you and not only speak to some black holes with names in it. Yes, so let me give a quick little overview. Also, one thing is I have to warn you, we had pretty unstable internet here today. I am actually in Simhachalam in Germany, and it's been very windy here today, and the internet has been on and off the whole day. And just 5 minutes ago, it was off again, and I was running around and getting it going again. So just in case I will be gone, so don't be surprised. It's just the internet here today is a little unstable. So yes, this seminar actually has 5 sessions. So for some of you, this may be a little too long and intense. Well, what can I do? You know, any deeper topic requires a bit more time and energy. So we will have today the first session, then tomorrow, then Wednesday next week, and then actually one more time Saturday and Sunday if we want to do the whole thing. You know, of course, if nobody is there, then maybe I will also not be there. But I mean, people also listen to it on YouTube later or something, so it is usually worthwhile doing it, you know. All right, so let me first offer a few prayers. Om Agyantimandasya Gyananjalasalakaya Chakshunmilitam Dina Tasmai Shri Guve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manupistam Stavatam Yenubutale Swayam Upakaramayam Dunati Swapadantikam Namam Vishnupada Kashavista Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Govani Pachayane Nivishesha Shunivari Pasatari Shatarine Vanchakapa Jubasha Kripa Simnivevata Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Bhavanityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasadi Go Bhaktavanna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. Yeah, so our topic for this seminar series is being in harmony with the other gender. So it is simply a humble attempt to shed some lights on this mystery of the male-female nature energies, how they're meant to complement each other, how they're meant to actually perfectly enhance and support each other, not only in married life, but actually in all dealings with the other gender around us, even in management, even at work, in some kami office or something. These principles, they're universal. And yeah, it is, I like to also see it as, you know, Vaishnav culture being Krishna's system, which he gives us his recommendations so that we can create stability and harmony in this world. so that we can develop our relationship with him. And basically we can say our modern disease is that we think our modern system is better than Krishna's system. This is actually the problem, really. And we think Krishna's system is outdated, old-fashioned, and not valid anymore. So, yeah, so it is simply a humble attempt to give some insights into Vaishnava etiquette and culture, especially centered around the man-woman relationship in nature and energies. Yeah, so this course is not really trying to establish what is right and what is wrong, what a man or woman should do or not do. This is not our aspiration here, but it is simply meant to give some insights how things are meant to function in Krishna's system. And at times we may realize how far away we are from Krishna's system, miles away. And we will even discover in this seminar how all our social problems, like divorce, child abuse, violence towards women, and they're all global reactions for not following Krishna's system, actually. In Krishna's culture, there's no room for these things. So, yeah, it is quite a thought-provoking and interesting discussion. And I simply hope it will give you some fresh food for thought and some insights to ponder over. And yeah, so let us maybe leave it at that for the time being as a little introduction. And we can start by simply having a little look at this topic of culture. What is actually culture? Where does it come from? What is it affecting? This is our topic for the first part of this session. Yeah, I have some devotees here sitting in my room, and there's a small child. So if you hear some funny noises from the background, then you know where it comes from. Yes. So let us first understand what is culture? How does it develop? So culture evolves through the practical application of a worldview, of an ideology. By practically living a worldview, culture manifests in all different aspects of practical life. And culture does not only come about through a certain worldview, but it also reinforces and promotes that same worldview. So it goes both ways. It comes about by living a philosophy and ideology, and at the same time, it reinforces that and it promotes and propagates that. So there is a very strong yet subtle effect of culture on our consciousness. We can't deny that. We cannot, simply say, oh, it's just some external things or something. No, it's not an external thing. It feeds back a certain philosophy in a rather powerful yet subtle way. Yes. So we actually don't even realize how much we are a product of our surroundings, for all that propaganda we are surrounded by, the culture we are surrounded by. This goes very deep and very subtle, but it is factual. And it is not so easy to transform that. That's how deep it is. Actually, I have to share, it took me many, many years to get all these insights. Basically, I received myself this whole transformational insights by regularly spending time in Bangladesh for the last 22 years or something. And Bangladesh is really a very amazing place. It's East Bengal. It's the place where most of Mahaprabhu's associates come from. And it is a place where our Vaishnav culture is still lived to this very day. So, and over the last 20 years, my whole worldview got completely transformed and put upside down, actually. It took a long time, and I'm still, transforming, hopefully. So, yeah, so, it took me many years. And this is when I started realizing, actually, yes, not everybody can spend time in Bangladesh. So actually, we need systematic training and education, how to actually live our worldview. The step number one in spiritual education is to learn the philosophy. We learn the shlokas, we can quote it, we like to talk about it. So that is only step number one. So then comes step number two. How do we actually apply it? How do we live it? And we are not there yet, definitely not. And it's not surprising, because we are a young organization, a young movement, and especially here in the Western world, we are surrounded by the opposite, worldview. We will discover this in a minute. So not so easy to really transform. So, and that's what inspired me to establish an Institute for Spiritual Culture and put different courses together. And now I'm also putting these courses in book form. Actually, this course I have already published as a book. It is Spiritual Culture, Krishna's Divine System. That's actually the whole course in completion in the book. There's so much more in the book than what I can present in a few hours. So, if you're interested, it's available in Amazon. Soft copy you can get in Amazon, or the hard copy you can contact me and I can arrange, and I inform you where you can get it, or I can send it to you or whatever. So, yeah, so this is how culture comes about. It comes about by living a certain worldview, and at the same time it promotes and reinforces that same ideology. And in Bhagavad Gita 269, we have this nice verse where Krishna tells us what is night for all beings is the time of awakening for the self-controlled. And the time of awakening for all beings is the night for the introspective sage. So this is, a very strong statement, which gives us clearly this understanding that these two cultures are actually like day and night. The time of awakening for all beings is obviously the general person, the materialist. So what is day for him, time of awakening, that is the night for the self-controlled, which is the spiritualist, and vice versa. What is the awakening for the spiritualist is night for the materialist, because they live in completely different realities, actually. We will discover this in a minute. So yeah, that's how these two cultures are like day and night. And instead of day and night, we can also set two other sets of terms, like reality and illusion, or knowledge and ignorance, right? What is knowledge? What is reality for the spiritualist is illusion and ignorance for the materialist, and vice versa. And we often encounter that when we, for example, go on book distribution. And then often people say to us, oh, you are Hare Krishnas, you are escaping reality, you are an illusion. And we can say the same thing about them, or you guys are in illusion, you are escaping reality, you don't even know who you are. So this is how different these worldviews are of a materialist and a spiritualist. And ultimately, we will discover, they're based on entirely opposite goals in life, and therefore they're ultimately incompatible. And it's an interesting point, this day-night principle accompanies us actually through all different aspects of life. And we can really say what is success in spiritual practice is seen as a weakness and being a loser in material life. For example, qualities like tolerance is a highly important quality in spiritual practice. It's one of the criteria where we can measure a person's spiritual strength and advancement in how tolerant a person can be. But for a materialist, it's seen as a weakness. We are loser. Why do you tolerate this? I'm not going to tolerate this. So their tolerance is not what people strive for, completely not. Or even in other aspects also, other qualities, like chastity, shyness for women, highly important quality in spiritual terms. But for materialists, what? Chastity? People don't even know what it means. Nobody in the outside world strives for being chaste. People don't use that term anymore, that vocabulary. So that's how opposite these two realities are. So let us just quickly, briefly collect the underlying worldviews of materialistic culture and spiritual culture, just to be really clear how different they actually are. So yes, let's start with materialistic culture. The underlying motto, the sutra of material life is sense enjoyment is the goal in life. Out of all sense gratification, sex life is the best. And you are this body, gross and subtle, Material life is all targeting to increase bodily identification, not only gross body, but also subtle body of mind, intelligence for the ego. In fact, material life is all about increasing and boosting the ego. The more one is expert in showing off, the more successful we are in life. Showing off is the number one path to success in material life. So, and then what else do we have? Everything is meant for my pleasure. I'm the center of the universe. How can I use everything for me and my advantage? I'm the proprietor, I'm the controller. And there's only one life. That makes a big difference to the whole outlook on life. If there's only one life, then we don't have to take responsibility for the sinful activities we may be engaging in, because at the point of death, everything is finished anyway. So why worrying, But as soon as there's an understanding of no, there's a further existence after death, then we have to take responsibility. We have to think about, what happens after death. Maybe our present activities have some effect on our next destination. So then we have to be responsible. So it's very convenient to just keep ourselves in this belief that there's only one life and enjoy to the max. And at the point of death, everything is finished. Very convenient outlook on life to fully engage in sinful activities. That's basically the essence of material life. So now if we look at the underlying worldview of spiritual life, all we have to do is take the opposite of what we just collected. Instead of sense gratification is the all-in-all goal in life. No, we minimize sense gratification. We minimize sex life to ultimately develop a higher taste. And the goal of life is Krishna's satisfaction, Krishna's pleasure. So it's completely, I mean, it cannot be more opposite than that, right? Very clear. So, and yeah, we are not this body, we are spirit soul, you know, so spiritual life is targeting to decrease bodily identification, gross and subtle, to dissolve the subtle body of mind, intelligence, and especially false ego. You know, that's what spiritual life is targeting. Again, completely opposite. Material life is boosting the ego, spiritual life is dissolving it. You know, and interestingly, the only entity which doesn't like spiritual culture is indeed the false ego. It rebels, it protests, it can't tolerate it. Yes, it's really like that. It's really like that. And it's not surprising because material life is boosting and increasing it, and then spiritual life is beating it on the head. So naturally the false ego doesn't like it. It protests naturally, you know, has to be expected. But it's good to recognize it. It's good to be introspective, and it may very well be that even in the seminar, there will be some challenging points where the ego may not like it and protest and rebel. I can already warn you a little bit, you know, so yeah, that's what spiritual culture is designed for, to subdue the false ego and dissolve it, because otherwise we can't go back to Godhead very easy. Yes. So, and then what else? Yeah, so it does not only reduce the false ego, but it reduces also the gross bodily identification, bodily concept of life. That's what it is designed for, to help us on that journey to get off the bodily platform. Yeah. And then, yes, I'm not the center, I'm not the enjoyer, proprietor, but Krishna is the center, he is the enjoyer, proprietor, controller. I'm just insignificant servant of the servant of the servant. So again, complete contrast here, you know. And yes, there's not only one life, but so many lives, further existence after we leave this body. So, and that brings in the topic of purifying duties, you know. Yes, that we have some duties to perform within Krishna consciousness, and that's the path then to purification. So we can actually qualify ourselves to get out of this material world, you know. So that puts a whole different approach to life in this material world. And in regards to duty, let me also bring up this point now, that this is a very interesting thing to understand, that in material life, the criteria who is doing what is simply who can get the best result, who is best at it. Because material life is very result orientated. We want results. And whoever brings the best result, he or she should do it. That's the criteria, who does what. But in spiritual life, things are rather different. There we are not that result orientated. There our goal is purification. That's what we want, you know. So then the criteria, who is doing what, becomes whose duty is it? Not so much who gets the best result, but whose purifying duty is it? And interestingly, Krishna says, better to do one's own duty imperfectly rather than doing somebody else's duty perfectly. Because when we do somebody else's duty, even if we do it perfectly, but if it is not our duty, it easily gets everything out of the natural harmony and balance. And I guess this is what we have today in the world, you know, in Kali Yuga, everything is completely out of balance. So, and one reason for that is, you know, that we don't understand, you know, the importance of sticking to one's purifying duties, rather than simply being result orientated. So, I mean, this gives a whole different approach to life, you know, when we understand these things. And it's all in Bhagavad Gita, you know. Yes. So, yeah, this is basically the main, you know, underlying worldviews of material life and its culture, and spiritual life and its culture. So, and there we can already discover, you know, how opposite they are, completely 180 degrees, you know. So now, interestingly, to understand, we can picture, you know, on one end of the spectrum is the day of the materialist. On the other end is the day of the spiritualist. So in between are so many different shades and grades and mixtures. It's not a black and white thing. Same thing like day and night, you know, there's dusk and dawn in between. It's a gradual transformation. So in the same way, you know, there's day and night, but there's a whole mixture in between. So now the process of Krishna consciousness is actually meant to bring a transformation. We are meant to transform our tastes, our likes, our dislikes, our worldviews, our patterns of behaviors, our very heart, so that we can develop bhakti there. So Krishna consciousness is all meant to transform us. We don't want to stay as we are. We want to transform. And if this transformation doesn't take place, then somehow we can say our spiritual practice may be a little superficial and external. It's not very deep, right? And another thing is that this transformation cannot be imposed on people. It cannot be forced on people. It can only be inspired and encouraged. So, and this is where we often go wrong. You know, we try and force things on people. We try to establish what's right and wrong. But this is not possible in regards to culture, because what's right for one person who is still more towards the material culture is wrong for a person on the other end of the spectrum who is still more to, you know, Krishna's culture. So we cannot approach the topic what's right and what's wrong. And I mean, I probably will share in due course of these sessions. I have come across some situations in Bangladesh where something was in Bangladesh completely right. And anywhere outside of Bangladesh, it would have been a scandal, even within Krishna consciousness. Yes, that's how it goes, you know. Yeah. So we cannot approach this whole topic of culture with its right, wrong, black and white understanding. But all we can do is try to give people insights into Krishna's system and his culture. And then we can make a conscious choice how much of which culture we want to invite in our life. But if we don't even know, you know, how Krishna's system is meant to function, then very easily we just go along with the flow. You know, whatever is progressive and modern and cool, and we may not even realize that we are inviting aspects into our spiritual life which promote the opposite worldview of what we want to cultivate. We just went through the whole exercise of discovering how these worldviews are like day and night, completely opposite. So that's why my humble approach and conviction is we have to give people systematic training and education. And then they can make a conscious choice how much of each culture they want to invite in their life, you know. But if we don't give that, then people are going with the Kali Yuga flows, and very easily the whole process of Krishna consciousness can be watered down, and then the spiritual strength and purity gets lost. So that's a concern, that's a concern. So, and maybe not everybody wants to transform, I think we also have to be a little honest. We all like it actually in the day of the materialist. We feel pretty comfortable there, because it's supporting our attachments to sense gratification and to the bodily platform and for its ego gratification and. So let's be a little humble and honest and admit that we like the day of the materialist. That's where we grew up. That's what we are conditioned by, and that's where we feel comfortable. And often we have this hope, and that we can have both. We stay in the day of the materialist, and we chant a little bit of Hare Krishna and add a bit of Krishna consciousness to it. But then we have the 10th offense, to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. So that's why Mahaprabhu tells us, Trinada Pisulichana. So we have to become humble and tolerant. Only then we can actually receive all this benefit which the holy name carries. So if we maintain our attachments to our ego gratification and we don't really get the benefit from chanting the holy name. So that's really why, this whole topic of culture is so essential, because basically we can say the main purification we receive by chanting the holy name, Shravanam Kirtanam, and the second track is service attitude, in humility within Vaishnava etiquette and culture. So these two tracks will help us to move forward. So, just chanting the holy name, but without the Vaishnava etiquette and culture is like elephant taking bath. We purify ourselves, and immediately afterwards we slide back into our ego patterns of behaviors and showing off and this and that. So, like that, we can't get anywhere, we can't get anywhere. So both has to be applied parallel. Yeah, so that's the whole thing, we have to transform. And we can also observe how this is very much connected with the general standard of life in society in different parts of the world. Like I spend usually, I got stuck in Germany in this whole corona crisis, but usually I don't even spend so much time in the Western world. I spend a lot of time in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, in countries where life is more simple, where life is more poor, so and there we find there's so many more aspects of spiritual culture are still there. Ukraine is so much more traditional than Germany or something, So, and then in those countries where life is more, standard of life is higher, people are more wealthy, people have more money in the pocket to enjoy life. So materialism sets more in and pushes the spiritual culture aside, and so it depends very much in which part of the world we even live, collectively. You may be in certain countries, they're closer to Krishna's culture, whereas in other countries, they're miles away from Vaishnava culture and Krishna's system, if I may say so, So it's very much relates to the standard of life also, So yes, that's why we can't approach this whole topic in a black-white, right-wrong mentality. So, but we have to, it actually requires humility and honesty. We have to be honest and humble, and look in our heart and see, where am I here on the spectrum? And do I actually want to transform and transform my taste and my likes and dislikes? Or do I just want to stay where I'm now? And then we should be humble and honest enough to admit that and not, pull down the whole standard just to support our material attachments, basically. You know, this is also what often happens. Yeah, so now let us just very quickly, you know, be clear how we've collected the underlying worldviews of the two different cultures. So now we can say, let us understand where, you know, actually culture manifests in our daily life. You know, so it actually manifests in almost all aspects, you know, in aspects like fashion, what we like to wear, you know, hairstyle, music, what kind of music we like to hear, recreation, what we like to do in our free time, you know, education. I mean, in so many fields of life, culture manifests, you know, because we live a certain worldview, and then the culture comes about in all different aspects of life, you know. And I mean, we can even quickly go through some examples, you know, like, for example, fashion. In material life, in material culture, we can divide it under the three modes of material nature. So fashion in the mode of ignorance is always black, torn, dirty, neglected, right? You know, that's mode of ignorance. Then mode of passion is basically attracting the other gender, bringing attention to ourselves, revealing the body, and mini skirts, tight leggings, and all this kind of thing. You know, that's the fashion in the mode of passion. Then mode of goodness is long skirts, clean and neat. We cover the body nicely without calling for attention. That's the mode of goodness. So, and then transcendental fashion is sari, dhoti, you know, that's the fashion of the spiritual world, like that. So we can almost take all, you know, all these aspects of culture and play them through these examples, you know. Same with hairstyle. Hairstyle in materialistic culture, mode of ignorance is again dirty, you know, dreadlocks and, you know, messy, or here, what are they called? The guys who wear the spikes there. Fukuhila. Huh? Fukuhila. No, they have another name. What are they called? Punks. Punks. That's what I was looking for, you know. The punk hairstyle and coloring the hair in crazy colors, pink, purple, blue, whatever. You know, so this is mode of ignorance. You know, then we have mode of passion, you know, again, calling for attention, attracting the other gender, something cool and, you know, attractive. Then mode of goodness, simply for the ladies, tying the hair back into a plait or bun or whatever. For the men, just simple, short haircut, nothing extravagant, you know. And then spiritual fashion for the ladies is covering the head. You know, interestingly, in most spiritual paths, we find that women cover their head. You know, the nuns do it, the Muslims do it, and so yeah. I mean, I grew up here in Germany in the village 50, 60 years ago. All the women had their head covered. They had scarves, you know, knotting it together under the chin or behind in the neck there, you know. Women were not walking around without a head covered, you know. So this we found 50, 60 years ago, even in Germany. Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine, you cannot even enter as a woman if you don't have your head covered, even if it's symbolically with a little handkerchief or something, but you cannot enter, you know. So these elements we find in all spiritual cultures, actually, you know. Yeah. So, and then, you know, yeah, head covered for the women, and for the men, shaved, shika. That's our tradition, you know, that's the transcendental hairstyle. Music, same thing. We can, again, music and mode of ignorance is techno, just noise and rhythm and crazy sounds, no melody, no text, nothing. That's music and the mode of ignorance. Then music and mode of passion is rock and roll, and jazz, and, it promotes sex life, again, indirectly, in subtle ways. And then music in the mode of goodness, classical music, church music is already transcendental, but simply, classical music. Every country has its classical music style. So, and then transcendental music is glorifying God. There we can also take in, the church music. Every spiritual path has their music glorifying God. So we are not the only ones. But of course, Kirtan brings us to the highest, platform of Goloka Vrindavan. No other transcendental music can transport us there. So in this way, we can, play any kind of daily aspect we can play through, in material life and its culture, influenced by the three modes, and then transcendental, and that gives us more of an idea how the culture affects our daily life and feeds back, a certain outlook and certain worldview, So that's undeniable. If we wear miniskirts or what, so that puts us more on the bodily platform and promotes this worldview of sex life being the highest enjoyment, Whereas when we invite, different, we can basically say the more spiritual aspects of culture or aspects of spiritual culture we invite in our life, the more it supports our spiritual practice, right? Because the aspects of materialistic culture always takes us away from Krishna. It promotes the opposite worldview, where we don't want to go. So it becomes very clear, that the more we invite aspects of Vaishnav culture into our life, that supports our transformation, that we transform our tastes and likes and worldviews and patterns of behaviors and. So, yes. Okay, so this is just like a little introduction at all into the whole topic of culture, because we will come through, in due course of time in the seminar, we will come through, across these points again and again, these day-night, aspect. It will accompany us in our discussions, so that's why this presentation always sets the foundation, actually, to everything else that is coming, So before we now start with our first topic in regards to the men-women topic, let me just quickly see if we just have some quick question just about what we were touching upon so far. So please do me one favor. When we ask for questions, let us stick to what we discussed, because as I mentioned in the beginning, we actually have a lot of highly interesting points ahead of us. There will be so much coming, actually. So I don't want to get into discussions which are off the topic. Otherwise, we will not manage time-wise, because it's a quite tight schedule if we want to really go through the whole thing. So that's why please just stick to the discussions, to what we talked about. So do we have any questions? Is there anything?
No questions as for now.
No questions so far.
Someone
Someone raises their hand.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm unmuting.
Unmute her.
Hare Krishna, dear Devaki Mataji. Thank you very much for the
Hare Krishna.
introduction to the class. I think it's a very much needed topic. So I wanted to ask a question about, you mentioned, music, for instance, and that, we find music in the different modes. And you mentioned, for instance, jazz music, you would classify as being in the mode of passion. So
Yeah.
my question is, for instance, jazz music or any other element of a culture which we would normally classify in the mode of passion, we do sometimes see that certain devotees would, use that for service. You've got people playing jazz instruments while doing kirtan, for instance. So how do we understand that?
Yes. I mean, we can even make it more clear, I'd say, by not talking about jazz, but just rock and roll. We have Hare Krishna rock and roll bands, right? Now, these days, I dare say they're not even as popular anymore as they used to be 20 or 30 years ago. So maybe we have transformed our taste a little bit. I mean, we can say this Hare Krishna rock music, it actually is for people who are addicted to rock music, who have that taste. I used to be one of those when I joined. The normal traditional kirtan was just too sattvic for me. So the first few years, I was mainly listening to Hare Krishna rock music. So, but then, thank God, I did transform my taste, and now I can't stand it anymore, So yeah, there is some room for using this as a preaching tool, for those people who are there at that point, where they like this kind of music and they can't relate to more traditional, music. But then again, more traditional kirtan, I mean. But then again, no need to, introduce it to people who have already got the taste for kirtan, in more traditional style, So, and I mean, I guess that's why we do have also GBC resolutions in regards to kirtan, namely that in the temple room in front of the deities, we should not play such kind of kirtan style. And this also was not always like that. When I joined in Australia in 1985, we were having, rock and roll kirtans at the Sunday Feast program, Bob Marley style here, reggae, and everybody thought it was far out and everybody loved it. And then finally, after some time, people started thinking, maybe this is not really what is really pleasing to Krishna, to Radha Gokulananda, maybe they would like to hear something a little different. So, and then actually, shortly after that resolution was passed, that in the temple room, in front of the deities, we should only use traditional instruments, even classical instruments. We should not use synthesizer, drum kit, electric guitar in front of the deities in the temple room. If we want to use these things outside on a preaching program, no problem. But this is indeed a resolution, because these instruments carry a certain energy and a certain vibration, and these instruments used in rock music, they carry that energy of mode of passion, no doubt, and yeah, this in the temple room, we should not really actually use this, so yes. So yeah, different things may have some place for preaching, but we have to be mindful that we don't become contaminated by it, And I mean, here in Europe, years ago, oh, when was that? 30 years ago, something, we had the Goranga Bhajan band. Maybe some of you remember. Goranga Bhajan band, there was quite a few Mahajas playing in that band, you know. And they were traveling around Russia and they came to Latvia also and so on. Huge success, thousands of people. But then, yeah, I remember Satyananda Swami saying, oh, you know, we realized this is actually not so good for our consciousness. It affects us, you know, so then they stopped, you know. So that's the thing, we have to make sure we don't get wet while fishing, as we say, you know, so we may use all these things for preaching, but then, yeah, it feeds back a certain worldview and mode of nature and so on, and it is contaminating, you know, so we have to be careful how we use these things. Is there anything else? Any other question? Elder Prabhu?
Oh, there is no, just, yeah, Prabhu. General question.
Thank you, Madhavki. Very grateful for the session so far, and really, really appreciate your points. My question was maybe a little bit more practical, and I appreciate if it's, I think it's on topic, but if you think it's off topic, then we can move on. My question is more general. How, if we're very absorbed in a materialistic culture, working and living in the cities, and if we're absorbed in that culture for more hours of the day than a spiritual culture, I guess how to maintain that spiritual culture in our lives, I think that's probably where I find quite tough. So any guidance would be helpful.
Yes, well, I mean, of course, first of all, strong sadhana will give us a, you know, a spiritual focus and outlook on the day. And then as much as possible in our free time that we invite, you know, the elements of spiritual culture in our life. For example, when we go to work, we sit in an office. Of course, we can't sit there in a dhoti or sari. But then when we come home, maybe even for 2 hours, we take a shower, we put on devotional clothes and tilak, you know, how nice, you know. So these things have an impact on our consciousness, definitely, you know. I mean, in the whole thing, you know, really we can discuss for a long time about all different aspects. For example, in regards to devotional clothes, you know, of course, there is so many incidences in life and situations where we cannot really wear devotional clothes, you know, so and sometimes for preaching, it is also beneficial rather not to wear devotional clothes. But the real question is, have I transformed my taste? In which clothes do I feel more comfortable? You know, that's the question, you know. So do I feel, you know, oh, okay, I'm going to the temple, let me put on the devotional clothes, and then as soon as the program is over already in the temple, there may be some changing room, and thank God I can squeeze back into my jeans or something. So then obviously we haven't really transformed our taste, you know. But if we feel more comfortable and more at home in devotional clothes, that's our real identity, you know. And all right, for the sake of working, we put on, you know, non-devotional clothes. So no problem, you know, but we can introspect and reflect. How much have I transformed my taste? Where do I feel more comfortable in devotional clothes or in gami clothes? You know, and what kind of music do I like to hear? You know, how much have I transformed my taste? We can really introspect and reflect and assess ourselves. Where am I here on the spectrum of, you know, the two cultures, you know? Yes. Last quick questions of Saradya Rasamadaji. You raised your hand.
Hare Krishna Mata. So thank you very much for the answer that you gave just now and to the question that I asked. So I just wanted to clarify. So would you say that if, for instance, we have an attachment to a certain, you know, style of, it can be dressing or eating or anything like that, and it's not really, it's not the Vedic style, then it's okay if we use that for preaching, and it's all right if in the beginning of our spiritual life we try and dovetail it with devotion.
Yeah, see, I mean, first of all, let me once again say, I'm not here to say what is okay and what is not okay. I'm not saying what is right and what is wrong, that everybody for themselves has to decide, I simply try to give insights into Krishna's culture and system, understanding them as recommendations to have stability and harmony in our life and have all the support we can get to transform. So who is doing what? I mean, that everybody has to decide themselves, how much they want to transform. As I said, some of us may not even want to transform at all, so that's up to us. We have to decide, So I'm not here to say what's okay, what's not okay. I just want to give principles, I want to give some insights into the underlying principles. I don't like to spoon feed my audience with solutions, what to do and what not to do. But I simply try and give principles, and then you decide, how you want to deal with it, And okay, so if you don't mind, let us continue. And here we have already one hot and almost controversial topic here. Are men and women equal? Yes, that's the topic for the next hour, for the second part of this first session. So let us understand the equality is there on the platform of the soul. Not only man and woman are equal, but actually every living entity is equal on that level, Pandita Samadarshana, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that the learned person sees everybody equal on that level of the soul. So now, because of ignorance of the of this knowledge of the soul and the equality on that level, people tend to apply that understanding of equality on the bodily platform because they don't know anything else. They intuitively feel, they should be equal, there should be equality. But because of ignorance of the knowledge of the soul, this equality is applied on the bodily platform, and that's the whole propaganda these days, that the man, woman are equal. This comes from bodily platform of life. The equality is there on the level of the soul, but not on the level of the body. And I mean, we as devotees, we have that knowledge that the soul accepts a vehicle, a male vehicle, a female vehicle. We are driving a certain vehicle here, but I am not the vehicle, But on the platform of the vehicle, there is not equality. Man's body, woman's body, gross and subtle, they're very, very different. My God, they have completely different natures, completely different qualities, because they're actually meant to play different roles, according to Krishna's recommendation, Of course, this understanding is all pretty lost now, in these modern days, because, this strong propaganda of equality is there, So now let us understand. I like to, compare the male body, female body with a certain kind of vehicle. Let's start with a male vehicle. I like to compare the male body to driving a tractor. Tractor is very basic, functional, no big decorations and frills. it moves mountains, it gets things done, it pulls 3 trailers behind him. You know, that's the tractor, that's the male vehicle. Yes. I mean, I remember when I was once giving the seminar in Mayapur, one devotee was writing me an email afterwards saying, well, couldn't you have taken a bit more of a, you know, a more cool vehicle here, Lamborghini or something, you know. But then the next day I asked the audience, so what do you think? And actually most men, no, they agreed, no, tractor is fine, you know, because after all, let's say a car gets stuck in 2 meters of snow, your Lamborghini is not going to be able to do much, you know, you need a tractor to pull him out, very clear, yeah. So let us explore a little bit more the tractor here, you know, what qualities he has and what roles he is meant to play. So again, according to Krishna's recommendation, you know, all those souls situated in a male body, they have 3 duties: to protect, to provide, and to take charge. This is according to Krishna's recommendation, you know, how the male body should function: to protect, to provide, to take charge. And interestingly, I mean, I find this very amazing and fascinating, how Krishna really puts exactly the right qualities in each of the 2 vehicles, so the person can perfectly play the roles we are meant to play. Krishna has just, you know, such a perfect design and system, you know. Yes. So let's understand man's gross body. That's why the male gross body is stronger, has stronger muscles, broader shoulders, bigger feet as a rule, you know. So he can play that role of protecting and providing, you know. And even the subtle body is also perfectly designed. That's why the male intelligence and mind is more rational, you know, so he can protect and provide and take charge. False ego, male false ego is stronger, is more prominent. You know, not only the gross male body is stronger, but the subtle male body is also stronger. The mind, intelligence, false ego are stronger of the man, you know. And again, it's perfectly Krishna's arrangement, because the ego initially motivates a man to take charge, right? If he didn't have that strong male false ego, he probably would not want to take charge. But somebody has to play the role. So that's why Krishna equips the male body with a stronger ego. So he wants to play that role, you know. So now for the man in Krishna consciousness, the challenge is to take charge in a humble mood of servant, not with false ego drive. That's a big challenge. That's difficult, you know, because anybody who ever takes charge in anything knows the false ego immediately also wants to be part of the whole thing, you know. So it's a real challenge to take charge and head something up in the humble mood of servant and not false ego, you know. So that's the challenge the men have to take up, you know, in Krishna consciousness, to learn how to take charge without false ego drive, but as humble servant. Also, interestingly, you know, man's intelligence works in such a way that he can either act on the emotional intelligence or he acts on the rational intelligence. He cannot so easily work on both. And this is clear why, because when a man protects, when let's imagine he's fighting a tiger there or something, he can't allow himself to get all emotional, right? So that's why he works only on the rational intelligence then, and the emotional intelligence is switched off, you know. But with women, for example, we get there in a minute. It's different, you know. So in these, you know, brief, we only have the time to quickly touch upon these things. I mean, in the book, I can elaborate much more on all these topics, you know. So it's just only, I can only touch upon these things. But yeah, in that way, we can understand that a man's gross and subtle body is perfectly designed in such a way, and it's equipped with the right qualities and natures, so he can play these three main duties of protecting, providing, and taking charge. So now we women, the female body, I like to compare to a sports car. Very powerful energy, you know, yes. And sports car comes with decorations and little extras and so on. And most men also like to have a sports car, let's be honest. So, and male, female duties, the main duties of a woman, what are they? So it's to give birth. Somebody has to play that role, you know, somebody has to do that job. So it's the woman's job to give birth. Then to be the caregiver, to raise the children, and not only the children, but to bring in this element of care, you know. That's also woman's role. So to give birth, to be the caregiver. And the third one, yeah, usually when I give these seminars live, I'm more interactive and I ask the audience and all this, but here in Zoom, we cannot really do this so easily, would take too much time. So the third role we are meant to play is that Prabhupada says this in the Bhagavatam, that we are meant to be the power of inspiration to men. We are meant to be the auspicious source of energy and the power of inspiration to men. These are the main three duties we women are playing, you know. So again, gross and subtle body are perfectly designed so we can play these roles. You know, first of all, gross body perfectly designed so we can give birth. And subtle body, woman's nature is of a more emotional kind, you know, we women have been given a more emotional nature, so we want to give birth to children. Otherwise, which woman would want to give birth, you know? The emotional nature is what inspires us women of wanting to be a mother. In the same way how men have the stronger egos, so they want to lead, we women have been given the emotional nature, so we want to be a mother. And so we can be a good mother, a good caregiver. That's why we women are more emotional. It's Krishna's design, you know. And that's why women also have a much stronger intuition. You know, men are not so intuitive as a rule, but women are, because as a mother, you have to be intuitive. You have to understand why your baby cries, what your baby needs. Man has no clue what the baby needs when it cries, you know, but a mother does. She knows exactly, you know, she's been given that intuition. Also, women are much more able to multitask, you know, yes. As a mother, you know, and the head of a family, you have to be able to multitask, do this and that, and so many things at the same time. Whereas men usually can only focus on one thing at a time, you know. I often experience this in my travels also, you know, when I plan some preaching programs or something, and I say to some Prabhu, oh, why don't we already, you know, work this out and that, and then the answer is, no, let's first do this, and then after that program, we do the next thing, you know. So this is the typical male approach, you know, one thing after another, where women are very good at multitasking. You know, that's why women are often also very good managers and coordinators, because when you have a big family, I mean, in former times, people had 10, 15 children, or Bhagavatam, hundreds of children. So the women had to be very expert in running a whole, you know, household, you know, so that was, my God, a challenge, you know. Yeah, so in this way, and oh yes, in order to be the power of inspiration to men, again, we women are actually meant to bring color and beauty into life. You know, maybe not in my age, but in younger age, you know, so that's why, yeah, I mean, we women are meant to bring color and beauty into life. Life would be boring if all human beings had a male nature, you know, yes. And often when I have a group of people sitting in front of me, on one side the men, on one side the women, you can very clearly see when you turn to the men, there's usually not that much color there, you know, it's all dark brown, blue, green or something, you know. But then you turn to the women, oh, so many nice colors, you know, it becomes very obvious, very clear, you know. You know, so, and that is one part of, you know, the inspiration a man gets by having a beautiful lady next to him. You know, we'll talk about this more tomorrow. So, and in order to make sure that we women want to make ourselves pretty and beautiful and colorful, that's why the woman's body comes along with a stronger bodily identification, you know, that motivates us to make ourselves pretty. Otherwise we couldn't be bothered, you know. So a woman's body comes along with a stronger bodily identification. So we want to make ourselves beautiful, you know. So, and that's why in Krishna consciousness, it is important that after the Grihastha ashram, there's another ashram, there's the Vanapasta stage of life, where we women are meant to become detached from bodily platform and making ourselves pretty and decorate and this and that. And we go into subdued colors and gradually into white. So this is, you know, almost more important for the women than for the men, because the men are not so much on the bodily platform as a rule anyway, you know, but of course Vanapasta is also, of course, important for them. But there's other aspects of the Vanapasta ashram which they have to more focus on, you know. So yeah, and that way we can understand, you know, man, woman, very different vehicles, tractor, sports car. So if we treat the tractor like a sports car, obviously we will be frustrated, right? And if we treat a sports car like a tractor, we will also be frustrated, you know. So it is a sign of intelligence that we ask ourselves, okay, let's make the best out of the bad bargain that we have a body. So what kind of body have I been given in this life? What qualities and natures does it come with? And how do I use it best for my purification to make sure I won't get another material body? You know, that's intelligence. You know, so now sometimes when I discuss these things, people say, but Mataji, we are not this body. We are spirit soul. Why worrying so much about the body, woman's body, man's body? You know, we are not the body. So what's the answer to that? My answer usually is, yes, we are not the body, but we have a body. We have one. So it's not the bodily platform to distinguish and understand what kind of body am I driving in this life. This is not the bodily platform. Let's be clear in this. Now, you know, bodily platform is when we identify with it, when we think I am the body. But no, we are not the body, but we have one. And it's a sign of intelligence to clearly understand what kind of body do I have here and how am I meant to use it and what roles am I meant to play, what purifying duties do I have, you know, and just to play them within Krishna consciousness, and hopefully to make sure that next life we don't have a body, you know, anymore, not a material one, you know. Yes. So now, yeah, we have a nice little quote here where Prabhupada also says this very clearly. 3:23:2. I hope you all have the materials in front of you. A man's psychology and woman's psychology are different, as constituted by bodily frame. A man always wants to be superior to his wife, and a woman, as bodily constituted, is naturally inferior to her husband. Thus, the natural instinct is that the husband wants to post himself as superior to the wife, and this must be observed. Even if there's some wrong on the part of the husband, the wife must tolerate it, and thus there will be no misunderstandings between husband and wife. Ooh, there we go. That's already, you know, for some of us, this may be already a bit of a challenge to the false ego. False ego doesn't like to hear these things, right? Well, I mean, as I say again and again, it took me years to understand these things. Years, my God, you know. And the Bhagavatam is full of heavy quotes. I mean, tomorrow, I can warn you already, tomorrow is probably, you know, bit of a heart surgery for many of us, you know. It's probably the heart of the whole seminar is actually tomorrow, you know. There we will read a few strong purports of Prabhupada. And for many years, I was just reading over them and parking them and thinking, okay, well, Prabhupada says it must be true somehow, but I don't even want to think about it, you know. So it took me so many years, you know, and really only due to my time in Bangladesh, because when I'm there, I'm only with the locals. There's no Western devotees there. And I live with them, I travel with them, I eat with them, I preach with them. And there I could see over the years and observe how actually civilized human life is meant to be lived. You know, how our Vaishnava culture and philosophy is meant to be lived, you know. And that's where gradually my whole worldview got put upside down. And now I completely understand why Prabhupada says these things, you know. Yes. But I mean, let's maybe park this for the time being, because really tomorrow we get more into the whole man-woman relationship more deeply, you know. Why you know, it is so important that we women have to play the subordinate role there, you know. But I mean, let me mention that already, just as a little you know, preview there on tomorrow. In order to be the power of inspiration to a man, that's why we women have to take the subordinate role, so we can give our powerful feminine energy to him and make him the hero. This is highly interesting and really thought-provoking, and I hope you will all come back tomorrow and you know, try to understand it. Yes, it's really, I mean, so important to clearly and deeply understand how the male and female nature are meant to complement each other according to Krishna's system, you know. Yes. But in any case, let's just at this point just accept that fact that a man's psychology and woman's psychology, they are very different, and already as constituted by bodily frame. You know, a man wants to be superior, and a wife, as bodily constituted, is naturally inferior to her husband. And we will read a few more quotes in a minute, which clearly actually make this, illustrate this, you know. So, yeah, and very briefly, let me touch upon this point. that as in material life with different vehicles, we have also traffic rules, right? There's traffic rules to make sure that there is no chaos, So there is, some bridges are not for trucks over 7.5 tons and this and that, there's traffic rules. So the traffic flows without chaos and disturbances. So in the same way, Krishna also has his traffic rules, for the different vehicles, so that everything goes smoothly. There's certain rules, traffic rules for those in male vehicles and traffic rules for those in female vehicles. And they usually have a good reason. So, and these traffic rules, let's say a truck driver can't go over a bridge there, because he's more heavy than 7.5 tons. So the truck driver will not get offended. He will not take it personally. Oh, it's not fair. I can't go across this bridge and blah. No, he understands. Okay, there must be a good reason. So I'm driving this truck today, so I better take the detour, and not risk it. So if we don't identify with the vehicle we are driving, we will not get offended by the traffic rules. Yes, So, but if we identify with the body, and think it's me, then we get all agitated. Oh, why do the women have to be here, there, this, that, So it's simply the false ego rebelling, and because we identify with the body, that's why we get agitated over Krishna's traffic rules. It's very clear. I mean, we still got a bit of time, maybe hoping that this will not agitate anybody, but maybe maybe let's take a little example of Krishna's traffic rules. In many parts of the world, that traffic rule is not observed anymore, but in some parts of the world it is still, and it definitely was like that 36 years ago when I joined. The traffic rule in the temple room was that the men are in the front, the women are in the back. That was everywhere in ISKCON actually. And then later it was changed to side by side, So now, and I don't want to discuss the traffic rule as such. And I also don't want to propose here that in every temple it should go back to that rule or something. But I simply want to use that example and now quickly understand why Krishna gives this traffic rule. What is the purpose of it? Because Krishna has his good reasons for the traffic rule. So what is the reason, why Krishna in general, promotes this rule, that the men are in the front, the women are in the back. So very simple. First of all, let us understand that a man gets agitated through the eyes. Women get agitated through the ears, men through the eyes. So if a man sees next to him a young pretty lady, he will easily get distracted, So that's why usually the women in the earlier days were behind, so that the men would not see the women and they can concentrate more peacefully on taking darshan of the deities, or hearing the class or whatever, So that's one reason, not to distract the men. So then the other reason is, we were just discussing, one of Krishna's recommendations that the men do is that they take charge. So if a man is in the front, that naturally helps him to take up that role, to take charge when he's in the front. It's simply the psychology of being in the front that helps you to take charge. So, and we women, if we are behind, you know, that also helps us to play that more submissive and supportive role, you know, and follow the man. We will get into that more in detail tomorrow, you know. So this is just an example of how Krishna has his good reasons for certain traffic rules, you know. And if we change them, we better be careful. We better understand, you know, what are Krishna's reasons, and maybe we get some unwanted results from these changes in the name of, you know, progression and so on, you know. So we better be careful and mindful and first look what effect that may have when we change Krishna's traffic rules, you know. Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's basically where I want to leave it, really. But just as a little addition to this topic of this traffic rule, I remember some years ago, I was in Tirupati in South India. I was part of the GBC Strategic Planning Devotee Care Committee, and we had some GBC meetings there. So in Tirupati, South India, definitely in those days, this traffic rule was still there, that the men were in the front, the women were in the back. And I actually could observe, looking at the local ladies, you know, how they were, like, for example, in Prabhupada's Guru Puja, you know, they were far in the back, but they were so deeply, you know, singing the Guru Puja song, connecting with Prabhupada. They didn't care less where they were standing in the temple room. It was so clear to me, you know, just watching them. And that made me realize, you know, if we think the development of bhakti depends on where we stand in the temple room, then I think we missed a point here, you know. You know, no, it doesn't depend on where we stand in the temple room, you know, our cultivation of bhakti. And actually we can say, if we are in the back, we women, this can even be seen as a special blessing, because we are forced like that to connect more deeply with Prabhupada. You know, we can't get on the ego platform of, oh, here I am in the front and look at me or something. You know, if we want to get something out of a Guru Puja to Prabhupada standing in the back, we have to connect with Prabhupada on deeper levels. So we can actually understand it's a blessing. It's a blessing, you know. And I could clearly perceive this there and amongst the local ladies. They didn't worry where they were standing. They were with heart and soul, you know, there in the Prabhupada Guru Puja and connecting with Prabhupada, you know. Yeah, so, you know, we have to learn to see things a little deeper and not be so much on the external platform of, oh, who stands where and and this and that, you know, my God, you know. Yeah, so bhakti does not depend on these external things. You know, bhakti cannot be stopped by any material arrangement. You know, any material circumstance cannot block bhakti. You know, so, you know, from spiritual terms, it doesn't really matter. You know. Yes. Okay, so. Yes, I do want to, we still have a little bit of time. Yeah, I do want to read this nice interview with Srila Prabhupada, which is in the materials. It's interview on the 7th of July, 1975. It's quite humorous. So if you have it in front of you, you may be more easily able to absorb it when you read along. So this was, you know, I mean, Prabhupada actually, let's understand, Prabhupada came to America in the heights of this whole women's liberation, equality, feminist mood, you know. He came really at that time. And of course, he was challenged on it, you know, he was challenged. And I mean, this interview will give us some insights how Prabhupada was challenged. So this a female reporter here is asking Prabhupada, not in a humble, submissive way, but in a challenging and provocative way, you know, answers all these challenging things, you know. So let us read. Reporter asks, what advice do you have for women who do not want to be subordinate to men? Prabhupada, it is not my advice, but the advice of the Vedic literatures, that a woman should be chaste and faithful to her husband. Reporter, what should we do in the United States? We are trying to make women equal to men. Prabhupada, you will never be equal to men, because in so many respects, your functions are different. Why do you say artificially they're equal with men's? The wife has to become pregnant, not the husband. How can you change this? Both the husband and wife will become pregnant. Is it possible? Reporter, no reply. Prabhupada, is it possible? Reporter, no, it is not. Prabhupada, then by nature, one has to function differently from the other. Reporter, why does this mean that women have to be subordinate just because they bear children and men can't? Prabhupada, by nature, as soon as you get children, you require support from your husband. Otherwise, you are in difficulty. Reporter, many women with children have no support from their husband. They have no, Prabhupada, then they have to take support from others. You cannot deny that. The government is giving them support. Today, the government is embarrassed. If the husband supported the wife and children, the government would be relieved of so much welfare expenditure. So that is a problem. Reporter, what happens when women support men? Prabhupada, first of all, try to understand that you are dependent. After a man and woman unite, they are children. And if the man goes away, you are embarrassed. The woman is embarrassed. Why? The poor woman is embarrassed with a child. She has to beg from the government. So do you think it is a very nice thing? The Vedic idea is that a woman should be married to a man and the man should take care of that woman and the children independently, so that they do not become a burden to the government or the public. Reporter, do you think that the social unrest, I am thinking like this, you give me the answer, simply you go on questioning, I will question you. Do you think this burden to the government and the public is good? Prabhupada is really driving the point, you know. Reporter, I don't understand what you're saying. Prabhupada, every year the government has to pay out millions of dollars in aid to dependent children. Do you think that this burden caused when the husband goes away from the wife, this burden to the government and the public is good? Reporter, no. Prabhupada, that has happened because the woman does not agree to be subordinate. Ooh, Prabhupada, strong. She wants equal freedom. Reporter, and if women were subordinate to men, I suppose that would solve all our problems. You know, she's trying to be a little sarcastic here, you know. But Prabhupada says, yes, the husband wants that his wife should be subordinate, faithful to him. Then he's ready to take charge. We will talk about that more tomorrow, how that actually inspires a husband to take charge if a woman depends on him. Man's mentality and woman's mentality are different. So if the woman agrees to remain faithful and subordinate to the man, then family life will be peaceful. Otherwise, the husband goes away and the woman is embarrassed with the children, and it becomes a burden to the government and the people in general. Reporter: is there anything wrong when the woman works? Prabhupada: there are so many things wrong. But the first thing is, why should some man's wife and child become a burden to the government or the public? First of all, answer this. Why should she become a burden? Prabhupada, reporter: no reply. Prabhupada: what is your answer? Prabhupada is really, my God, really driving the point. Reporter: well, men are burdened to the government too, she says. Prabhupada: do you think from the social point of view that this situation of women and fatherless children is a very nice thing? Reporter: what I'm trying to say is that this may happen to some women. I'm talking about women who are not. Prabhupada interrupts: this is the general pattern. You cannot say some. In America, I see they're mostly women. The women should be subordinate to the man so that the man can take charge of the woman. Then the woman is not a problem for the public. Reporter: is this true for all women and all men? She thinks maybe only for Indian men and women or something. Prabhupada: yes, that is the law of nature. You take even the dogs, they also take care of their children. The tigers, they take care of their children. So in the human society, if the woman is made pregnant and the man goes away, then she is embarrassed. She has to beg from the government. That is not a very good situation. Reporter: what about women who do not have children? Prabhupada: well, that is another unnatural thing. Sometimes they use contraceptives or they kill their child, abortion in the womb, abortion. That is also not very good. These are all sinful activities. Reporter: excuse me? She doesn't understand sinful activities. Prabhupada: these are sinful activities, killing the child in the womb and taking shelter of abortion. These are all sinful activities. One has to suffer for them. Reporter: is the social unrest in this country caused because, Prabhupada, because of these things? They do not know that. Yes. And I mean, there's several other interviews and talks. You know, whenever Prabhupada was challenged on this whole topic of man-woman equality, this is usually how he answered. You know, how can they be equal? Woman is pregnant, man cannot be pregnant. How can there be equality? You know, when a woman gives birth, then she's dependent on her husband. How can there be equality? This was always the point Prabhupada was driving, you know. And it's just such a simple point, which actually nobody can refute, you know. So, and yeah, and that was Prabhupada's strategy, how he answered this topic, you know, of equality. That yes, on the level of the soul, of course, there's equality, but on the level of the body, no. Yeah. So, of course, I mean, I can imagine maybe in some of you this already raises some challenging points or some questions or something. And really, we will go, today we are just introducing the whole topic. So tomorrow we will go more into the details, you know, of this whole man-woman energy, nature, and how they're meant to complement each other. But there is a few more quotes here, and we will not have the time to read them all, but a couple more I want to read. This is the morning walk on the 14th of July, 1975. It's a very short one. But there Prabhupada makes this comment. He says, free prostitutes. You go to a prostitute, you have to pay. Here they have arranged in such a way that free prostitute loitering on the street and you can enjoy anyone. This is their plan. they are rendered into beggar and they are thinking equal rights. So this is a very important point, actually, that this whole equality understanding was a conscious thing that was propagated just so women can be used more for sense gratification. Yes. And Prabhupada immediately could look through all this. He could see it. He could understand what was going on. You know, that's why he says, this is their plan. You know, so this whole equality propaganda, you know, relieves actually the men from their duty and their responsibility of taking charge of the woman and the child. And it makes it more easily available that women can be used for sense gratification. That's why Prabhupada says that's free prostitution, you know. Usually you have to pay, but here you can just pick up anybody in the bar, in the pub or whatever on some party, you know, for one night stand, how we say in English, you know, and yeah, and you don't have to take care, you don't have to protect and provide and so on, you know. So it was a conscious plan because, as we said in the beginning of the session, material life, sense gratification is the overall goal in life. And out of all sense gratification, sex life is the topmost enjoyment. So in order to facilitate that, that's how this equality propaganda came in. Yes, just to promote sex life and make it easily available. You know, yeah, it was a conscious plan. And, you know, we women, you know, we go along with it, not realizing how this is a whole plan that we are exploited, actually, you know. And I mean, I have to share this one thing. Once, it was in Germany, I met a young bhakta who moved into the temple, and he had a girlfriend who was pregnant from him. And he just left her and moved into the temple. And I got on his case. I said to him, how can you do this? Your girlfriend is pregnant and you just leave her and move into the temple, you know? And I met her later and she was actually a nice girl. She probably would have become a devotee if he had just, you know, given her a bit of a chance, you know? So, and the striking answer he gave me, I mean, you will not believe this, but when I got on his case, his answer was, you know, when I asked him, why, how can you do this? You know, his answer was exactly this. He said, well, I thought we are equal. And after all, the government pays. That's exactly what it does to a man's, you know, mind and attitudes, this whole equality thinking. You know, that exactly that. I mean, he hadn't done the course or anything, so he didn't know all this, you know, but that was his spontaneous response and answer. Well, I thought we are equal and the government pays. So why should I be responsible? I want to become a devotee now, and I moved into the temple. You know, so this is exactly what it does to a man, you know, that he thinks, oh, well, we are equal. Okay, it was nice with you. Yeah, we had good fun. Okay, see you later. We are equal, you know. Yeah, exactly, you know. I mean, I was so shocked when he gave me this answer. I thought, this can't be true, you know. exactly that he was answering, you know. Yeah, so this is exactly what it does to a man's mind and consciousness, that he feels relieved of any kind of responsibility. Oh, well, the women are equal, so let them do their thing, you know. They can take care of themselves, you know. Yes. Yeah, so Prabhupada could immediately understand this, you know. That's why he was saying these words, you know. Then we have another nice quote. This starts with Yogeshvara after in the materials after another morning walk there. I'll skip that. So here, Yogeshwar says, here's a problem. The women today want the same rights as men. How can they be satisfied? Prabhupada, everything will be satisfied. Just like our women, Krishna conscious, they are working, they don't want equal rights with men. It is due to Krishna consciousness. They are cleansing the temple, they're cooking very nicely, they are satisfied. They never say that I have to go to Japan for preaching like Prabhupada. They never say, this is artificial. So Krishna consciousness means work in his constitutional position. The women, men, when they remain in their constitutional position, there will be no artificial, and then the sound becomes indistinct because of loud traffic noise. This is on a morning walk in Rome in 1974. So in any case, Prabhupada is giving this answer, if men and women stay in their constitutional position and they serve, then they will be satisfied. Also another one after that, Srila Prabhupada didn't want us to adopt American ways of life. After Bhagavad Gita lecture, Srila Prabhupada was asked if he was in this world. He replied, just like I am in America, it is very easy to understand. I am not adopting any ways of life as the Americans. So I'm not in America. Not only myself, all my disciples who are following me, they are also not Americans. They're different from American behavior, American ways of life. In that sense, I'm not in America. I am in Vrindavan because wherever I go in my apartment or in my temple, I live with Krishna and Krishna consciousness. I don't accept any consciousness of America. And I teach my disciples also to take to that consciousness. So one who takes to that consciousness, he is also not in America, not in this world. This is in a lecture in 1968 already in Los Angeles. So it makes it very clear, Prabhupada calls it American consciousness or Vrindavan consciousness. So this is, again, day of the materialist, day of the spiritualist. So it is a nice quote where, Prabhupada makes this point, but that no, we don't want to accept the materialistic way of life. We want to develop Vrindavan consciousness, Krishna's culture, and not adapt to the materialistic ways of life. Then another one here, the last one, Bhagavad Gita lecture in Germany in June 18th of June 1974. Prabhupada says, so this statement will not be very palatable to the Western girls. They want independence. In Chicago, when I was there, they talked about independence of the woman. They asked me a question, so I replied, no, woman cannot be given independence. So there was a great agitation against me. So even Prabhupada was, he was criticized for these statements. In many papers, I was very much criticized, but actually it is the fact, because they are innocent, not so intelligent, and these are all practical. We may avoid discussing them, but Bhagavatam is very open for discussing all subject matter. That is fact. We should not hide anything artificially. We must discuss the fact. Not only here, the mention it is, this Manu Samhita. Manu Samhita recommends a woman should not be given independence. For their interests, they must be protected by father, husband, and sons, because if they're polluted, they become very dangerous. I mean, we will also have one session where we talk about the topic of women's protection, and I will share some nice little stories also from my experience in Bangladesh and so on, you know. So there's quite a few nice topics still waiting for us, you know. But let us just conclude this first session now, you know, by understanding that this man-woman equality understanding, this is really based on bodily concept of life, you know, because we identify with the body and we think on these bodily terms, we have to be equal. We don't understand the equality is on the level of the soul, but we are driving a certain vehicle in this life, and the vehicles are not the same. And saying that women are not equal with men does not mean she is not important. No, it's the opposite. Tomorrow we will realize, maybe, hopefully, what a highly important role we women play. Our energy is so much more powerful than male energy. You know, we are like the backbone to human society, you know. So this, you know, understanding that men, women are not equal should not lead to this misconception that women are nothing and the men are everything. No, no, no. It's the other way around. Actually, I have to really share, you know, that here in the Western world, there is a very, you know, distorted understanding of women's position in spiritual culture. You know, yes. I mean, I have the experience in Bangladesh, how highly respected the women are and how they're taken care of. And mother is, you know, the topmost position is mother, you know. Yeah, and here in the Western world, we have a very shallow, cliche type understanding, you know, of women's position in spiritual culture, really. It is sad, you know, it is very sad. But actually, Krishna's culture is so beautiful. It has so much sweetness in there, and it's so much affection, and you know. But we here in the Western world, we don't have the understanding properly, you know, and we are also traumatized by lusty impressions and you know. But the spiritual culture is full of beauty and sweetness. Yeah, that I can truly say, and affectionate dealings, you know. So anyway, but this man-woman equality propaganda, we will discover this is actually what puts the whole Krishna system and puts it out of place. It starts all with this man-woman equality propaganda. It's like a domino effect, you know, when you line up all these domino things and then you tick one and bzz, the whole thing, you know, falls over. So that's the, you know, the domino effect of this man-woman equality. It puts everything upside down. We will get some insights tomorrow in this, you know. Yeah, so it's a real crucial point, actually, you know, this misconception of equality, you know. Yeah, that puts everything out of place, you know. Okay, so let us see if we have any questions after this first session.
There was one question from Prabhu, but he left already. So,
but maybe we can still ask it, even if he has left, if it is a good question.
Well, it's yeah, about feminine and masculine things inside one person. Question: is it man's duty to protect, provide, and take charge, or is that a masculine nature? For example, some people have more masculine and some more feminine.
Well, I mean, tomorrow we will more discover how in Kali Yuga, because everything is so upside down, it tends to, you know, have the effect that the women become more masculine and the men become more feminine, and everything is upside down, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, according to Krishna's recommendation, you know, those in a male body are meant to play, you know, those male duties, you know, And actually by playing those male duties, it also makes a person more male, you know. So the subtle and the gross body, they're connected. So if we engage the gross body in male activities, that has an effect on the subtle body, and the male nature comes more out, you know. And the same with a woman. You know, if a woman engages in male activities and she absorbs her mind in male, you know, moods and thoughts and so on, then even her gross body becomes more male, you know. But if a woman engages in feminine activities and in goals and thoughts and moods, then also her external body becomes more feminine, you know. So it's not something that is simply given or something by birth or whatever. It depends on the natures we apply, on the roles we're playing, you know. And of course, I mean, in practical life, it also is very much dependent on our conditioning, you know, that usually we learn from father and mother. That's, you know, that's, now we're going to the kids course, but father and mother are teaching us how to act as a man and a mother, as a man, as a husband, and as a father. And the wife teaches how to act as a woman, as a mother, and as a wife, you know. So, and if we didn't have good role models there, you know, then we may not have learned how to act as a woman or how to act as a man, you know. So, but nevertheless, actually the qualities are built into the body. They come along with the type of body we have. And sometimes they may be covered somehow, you know, but they can be brought out, you know. So in spiritual culture, the idea is that men are true, heroic, chivalrous men, and they play their role. And the women are beautiful, feminine Lakshmi Devis, and they play their role, you know, and in that way, life is, you know, balanced and stability and harmony, and everybody can wholeheartedly develop their relationship with Krishna, you know. But in these modern days, things are rather topsy-turvy, you know. But definitely, I mean, my vision is that Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, you know, we are meant to show humans, society, how civilized and cultured human life is meant to be lived, where the ladies are true feminine women and the men are chivalrous, heroic men. And life is beautiful and colorful and harmonious and stable, you know. I mean, otherwise, if we have the same social problems in ISKCON as the outside society is facing, oh, well, what do we have to show here for, you know, nothing much, maybe a nice philosophy or something. But we are actually meant to, Prabhupada was envisioning a cultural revolution, you know. We are meant to demonstrate to the world how a human life is meant to be lived. And this whole gender confusion, it's taking crazy dimensions, you know. And this is also a conscious plan behind it. My God, we have to look a little deeper and understand what the plan is here. You know, that this whole gender roles confusion, you know, is meant to break apart the family unit. So people live like animals, you know. That's how the whole, you know, prediction of Kali Yuga, where human beings are like animals. This is one main part, how it comes about, through this man-woman equality, you know, because any human civilization and any human society can only be stable and strong if it's based on strong families. And families are based on very clear roles of man and woman. That's what keeps a family together. when the roles of the husband and wife are very clearly defined. And according to Krishna's system, it's all there, you know, what husband and wife, what roles they're meant to play. And that keeps the family together. We will discover this, you know, this equality jeopardizes the family unit. It breaks it apart. And we can see it in Kali Yuga, you know, the stable family is hardly even existing anymore, you know. People don't even get married anymore, have children with this man, that man, the other man, never been married, and you know, so family is falling apart like anything. And that's the whole plan behind it, by, you know, making the gender roles all blurry and confused, that breaks apart the family unit. And then people are like gullible animals, and they can, you know, manipulate them in this way and that way. And then people become like animals, you know. Yeah, I mean, it's taking alarming forms, this whole gender confusion, you know. That there's even in schools, you know, the children are taught these things. And I mean, in schools in Sweden, there's no he and she anymore, but some it, you know, some neutral way of addressing the kids. And I've seen some video clips there, devotees sent me this and that, you know, where the child is asked, so what do you want to be, a boy or girl today? And they're dressed all funny, and the poor kids are completely bewildered and confused. And I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, you know. Yes. I mean, my God, it's really taking crazy and alarming forms, this whole gender confusion, you know. So, I mean, we in ISKCON, we have to set something against this, you know. We have to show, you know, that human life is not meant to go in this direction, you know. And it's all going on. People are all buying into it in the norm of progress and reformation and being modern and so on, you know. People don't realize, you know. But we devotees, we have to realize. But if we are confused over the whole gender thing, you know, and we you know, we are bewildered by it, and we think it's all, you know, cool and progressive to, you know, to be all equal and so on, you know, then, I mean, what can we show, you know? Yes. All right, any other question? There was one thing here. Betty, you had, no, you're not Betty, you're Bhakti Devi, right? Yes.
Hari Bol, can you hear me?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Well, wow, I don't know where to begin. You know, first of all, you know, I come from a family where my mother was physically abused by my father. And so she taught her daughters to be very independent and to go out and make their own money and not be dependent on anybody.
Yes.
Which is exactly what I did.
Yeah.
But I have a husband. We've been together for 44 years, but I have been the primary breadwinner for a long time. So it all works. But I mean, but this is very common in this country, that women are out there working and raising their families also. And the husbands are taking a role in raising the families.
Mm.
I understand all the points that you're making. I understand them, but obviously, like you said, it's all turned upside down. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to hear some of the things that you were saying, you know, and it's very hard to hear, even in Prabhupada's lecture, even after everything you've said, for him to say that women are less intelligent. You know, that's hard to hear.
We'll talk about that. You know, that is even a session that I think that comes in the last session, 5th session. But just now to quickly answer to this. Intelligence, let's understand what is intelligence. It's a material element of the subtle body. It's just as if we get all uptight about the statement, men usually have bigger feet. You know? We don't identify so much with the feet, so it leaves us cool. All right, the men have bigger feet, so what, you know? But intelligence, oh, we identify so much with it, you know, because Material life is focusing on increasing the subtle body. That's why I gave that introduction. You know, mind, intelligence, thoughts, ego is blown up to the max. And we are so proud of our intelligence. And again, it's bodily identification. Because we identify with the subtle body, that's why we get so agitated over this statement. You know? But I always make this joke. I say, actually, to go back to Godhead, we have to dissolve the subtle body. So to have a little less intelligence, it's an advantage, less work to dissolve it. And it's really true. It's true. Yes, because material intelligence makes people proud, you know. Yes, I mean, the Shastra is full of examples how it is actually an advantage to be in a woman's body. Gopis themselves, you know, and so many other examples are there, you know. The Brahmana wives, you know, when they, you know, when the Brahmanas were too busy with their yagyas, didn't want to give any food to the Krishna and Balaram, but yeah, Brahmanas' wives, of course, you know. So, I mean, the intelligence is so often an obstacle in developing bhakti, you know. Yes. So, I mean, once we understand all these things more deeply, it leaves us completely cool that women are less intelligent. So what, you know, it's like women have smaller feet, you know.
and thank
platform, bodily.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
False
And
ego.
thank you. And
Right?
thank you for your explanation about the women sitting in the back of the temple versus the front. That's very helpful.
Yeah, I mean,
It really is helpful.
I mean, you know, these days hardly any temple really follows this etiquette anymore, you know, mostly it is side by side or something. And I don't mind, it's not that, oh, I'm here, you know, promoting the old rule or something, but all I wanted to bring across that Krishna has his good reasons,
Right.
you know, and we should not think that our modern systems and ideas are better than Krishna's systems.
Right.
That's the problem. Actually, if you really want, you know, you can say it's actually subtle atheism. We like Krishna, but we don't like his system. You know, we don't like his traffic rules. We only like Krishna and the prasadam he leaves us. But his system and rules, we think it's all old-fashioned and outdated. It's actually borders on subtle atheism, you know, if you really want, you know, because Krishna's system is you know, applicable at any time, place, and circumstance. The principles are always right, you know. Yeah, they're beyond time, place, and circumstance because it's Krishna's system, you know. Yeah. So the principles, we have to, you know, be careful to preserve them. The details may look different at time, place, and circumstance, but the principle we have to maintain, you know. Yeah, and I mean, tomorrow we will touch upon this whole thing of abuse. Because we will start tomorrow the session by discussing the topic of hierarchy, what hierarchy means, and so because I come across this very often, because especially also in America, there's so much abuse people have suffered, you know, and when women hear often this thing of, oh, women should be subordinate and submissive, then all their experiences from some abusive situation comes up, and they can't deal with it, you know. So the problem is the abuse, you know, which we have suffered, you know. Yeah, so that makes it sometimes very, painful for a lady to hear these words, you know. So, well, that means there's something we have to work on. There's still something undigested, you know. We can't change Prabhupada's words just to, you know, make people who suffered abuse, make them feel more comfortable or something, you know. No, that means there is something that has to be worked on and digested and you know. Yes. But I fully understand, you know, this, I come across this every now and again, you know, that people who have suffered abuse, for them, this is very hard to hear, you know, because of these traumatic experiences, you know. And with such kind of undigested traumatic experiences, we can't enter the spiritual world. We have to dissolve this. We have to do some work, you know. With such luggage, we cannot enter Goloka Vrindavan, you know. Yeah, we have to dissolve all these bad impressions and horrible things which are lingering there in the mind and so on. You know? Yes.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I mean, as I said in the beginning, this course is not establishing what's right and wrong. You know, sometimes, so often people always ask this question, so is it all right for a woman to do this, that? Sorry, I don't want to go that way. I'm not saying what's right and wrong, you know, and I'm very well aware of it. Or there will be some more interesting points coming where we realize, my God, we are miles away from Krishna's system, miles away, you know. But why is Prabhupada saying all these strong words in the Bhagavatam? I mean, I have unflinching faith in Prabhupada's words. He says it for a good reason. And he expects us to, over several generations, it will take several generations to get gradually closer to Krishna's system, you know, because that's what it means to live our philosophy, you know. We are not only meant to hear it and repeat it and learn it by heart, but we are meant to live it, you know? Yes, yes. So Prabhupada expects us to eventually get there, but it takes time, several generations, from generation to generation. But my approach is that we simply let us gain insights how Krishna's system is meant to function, you know? First of all, we have to get that understanding. How is the whole puzzle all meant to fit together, you know? And then we can see, so where am I here? And where do I want to be? This is a very individual thing, which everybody has to apply, you know, decide for them individually, you know? And yeah, we should also not drown ourselves in guilt feelings or something when we realize, oh my God, I'm far away from Krishna's system. Well, that's what it is, you know. But let us understand how his system is meant to function, you know. Because also Prabhupada was saying every material problem has a spiritual solution. If it didn't, what would be the use of Krishna consciousness if we would not have an answer to every material problem, you know? And in this course, we will come across so many answers, you know, to the material problems. We will realize how Kali Yuga's problems actually came about, you know, what's the root cause of all these problems, you know, we are facing. And one of them is this whole equality thinking, you know. This we will discover tomorrow already a little bit, how that really puts everything upside down, you know. Yes, yes. Yeah, now we have to, you know, get insights and hopefully also some little faith, you know, that Krishna's system is beautiful and it works. And it's very nice. And it qualifies us to go back to Godhead. We get off the bodily platform. We dissolve the false ego. That's the whole thing, you know. And as I mentioned in the beginning, for the ego, some things are hard to hear, you know. The ego rebels when we hear, oh, women are less intelligent. What do you mean? Oh, I'm also intelligent, blah, 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 you know. It's the ego. Let's be clear in this, you know. Yeah, let's make the diagnosis. You know? Yes. Okay. Anything else, Elder Prabhu?
No, and I think you need to go because you have.
Yes, we have Saturday evenings. We have here in Simhachalam the the fire yagya for Lord Nrsingadev and Kirtan evening. Very true, you remember. Okay, so I thank you very much for joining us, and I hope to see you all back tomorrow, same time. So yes, we have tomorrow, then Wednesday, and for those who really want to go through the thing, there will be Saturday and Sunday also next week, you know. And then the last session, there's a lot of interesting topics. I mean, so please stay with us. And if anybody doesn't have this book yet and wants to get a copy, then let me know either through my email, devaki@pomo.net, or you can get it in Amazon, or some of you have it already anyway. So. Okay, thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Jai. Thank you.
Hari Hari
Haribo.
Bol.
Krishna. Haribol.
See
Thank
you
you.